Hi.
Um, it's very exciting to have you here.
Thank you so much. That's a heck of a act to follow, though.
No, well, I have high hopes for you as well. Don't you worry.
I'll do my
We will
best.
absolutely smash this too. Okay, so I'm going to do a little intro for you. Claire is
Mhm.
an author, screenwriter, and producer who runs Glasgow Tellyfest, an initiative and festival for celebrating Scottish stories and talent in the TV industry. So we're going to be talking about the digital revolution in screen storytelling, how you can use it to kickstart your career, and how TV and film commissioning will work in the future. All sound good?
Mhm.
Okay, good. I think it's a good place to start by telling us a bit about Glasgow Tellyfest. What is it? And also, how did you end up starting it? Why?
Absolutely right. That's a big question. It's a great question though. So Glasgow Tellyfest is fundamentally it's a system for both discovering and then developing and supporting both new voices and then just sort of bold projects into the industry. One of the big problems I have seen as a jobbing screenwriter for the last 25 years is there's been an increasing, I mean, there's always been risk averseness in the industry, as long as it's been around. Obviously, budgets are very high in drama, and so that's always been an issue. But the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And it's got to the point, the metaphor that I always use is that it's a little bit like if you can imagine bands were unable to ever play live ever until or unless they were applying to headline Glastonbury. So you
Right.
can kind of see then with obviously the Glastonbury headliner or whatever festival, there's millions of pounds riding on it. It's the reputation of the festival. It's a huge, huge risk. And if you've got no idea what someone can really do, if you're just kind of guessing based on listening to some recordings, it would be a very, very scary risk to take. And I feel as though that's kind of where we've got to now in TV in particular. Um, Now that we budgets are so high that there any script they take a chance on, they're already risking millions of pounds, the reputation of their company, their job, and all that kind of thing. So it makes it incredibly difficult for not only new voices and untested voices, but even any genres or types of stories that are a little bit sort of out with, the crime dramas that we see all the time. They are seen as safe bets. But the problem is that those safe bets don't necessarily excite audiences anymore because we've seen so many of them. There are some great ones. Nothing wrong with crime dramas at all. But when you see things like Adolescence, which was such an exciting, bold, attention-grabbing idea, and the response that it got, it just goes to show that actually when you do take risks, audiences get excited, and that's what we want. So Glasgow Tellyfest is a system to try to take the risk or the guesswork out of commissioning. So as I say, one of the big problems is this huge leap from an idea or even a script, which is it's flat on a page. It may be great when it's acted, or it might not be. You just don't know until you try it. To this sort of £1 million commissioning. So we kind of start with really, really like tiny, very easy projects. They're called 1 minute pilots. And it's literally that. It's about, I say 1 minute is more of a concept than an actual timing because everyone's like, what if it's 67 seconds? And I'm like, that's absolutely fine. But it's short. It's like a social media video, and it should be as easy as making a TikTok. So you get an actor pal, and they play your character, and they might introduce themselves, or they might be telling you something about what's going on in their life, that would be the spark for what might go on to be eventually a 6-part 60-minute drama. So we start with that, and that then gets seen by our committee, and the committee is this huge, amazing, varied group of, there's some actors, there's writers, there's musicians, there's podcasters, digital creators. So it's a little bit, it's all creative minds, creative voices, and a little bit different than the normal gatekeepers. So once they have watched all the pilots and they come up with a short list, then projects kind of start advancing through the system to eventually be showcased at our yearly festival. And that is when commissioners and bigger production companies can get involved. And at that point, the project is quite tested. So if you go back to my Glastonbury analogy, it's a little bit like going and playing like manky pubs and student unions and getting better at what you do and building a bit of a following. Then all of a sudden, people can start thinking about booking you for the pyramid stage.
Ah, I love it. And also great analogy. That really does allow you to understand fully what the problem is. No, that's brilliant. And I guess in answer to the, to the question and the talk title, how do you break into TV in Scotland? Glasgow Tellyfest.
Exactly, exactly. And it's starting in Glasgow because it's where I am, and I do feel that Scottish voices do get a little bit lost just because of all these reasons. There's a bit of a perception, and this applies to all the regions. It's not a specifically Scottish thing. But I have been in so many, commissioning meetings over the years where someone's gone, okay, well, we could set it in Glasgow, but we'll need to have the lead or the director or the lead writer flown up from London. And so that was one of the reasons that I felt it was really essential to start it in Glasgow. But the idea is that after our first kind of year or so, once the system is established, we're going to effectively franchise it. So there'll be Glasgow Tellyfest, Cardiff and Toronto and Stockholm. Because I think that local people getting behind their own filmmakers and their own stories is a really, really important part that so it's getting a little bit lost with how global TV is at the moment. There's a bit of a fear of diluting that sense of place. And I think that's a really important thing to bring back.
Oh, completely agree. Well, you know that we at Eric will support that when the franchising
Mhm.
happens. So excited for that. Okay, so and let's talk about Scotland, why it's so exciting for TV and film. Because,
Mhm.
like you said, there's so much talent in the area. They may not
Mhm.
necessarily have a platform. But yeah, tell us a bit about the breadth of talent.
Oh, there's honestly the first. So I put out the first call for 1 minute pilots, and it was a total like honestly, it was actually about this time last year. I cannot believe a year has gone by. I started coming up with the idea, and it wasn't even completely all sort of worked out yet, but I knew the principle and I knew it was important to do. And I just started spreading the word through friends that were in the industry and social media and so on. And honestly, I could not believe the 1 minute pilots that were coming in. Just the breadth of I mean, every genre under the sun that you can think of, stories that I would have never thought of in a million years. And I do think in Scotland we are a nation of storytellers. Anyone that's ever waited for a bus in Glasgow will know that you just have to make eye contact with a stranger, and they're off telling you their life story, and it's so fascinating that you'll like miss three buses just to let it go. Um, so I do think that that particular sort of, I mean, rambling for want of a better term, but rich and fantastic type of Glasgow storytelling is so important for this because the other kind of aspect of it. So 1 minute pilots can come through the system, and at any point they may then be adapted into film or into TV. And the way that I see that is almost like adapting a book. It's a totally different medium. But I actually think it is really, really important to establish the digital medium as well. And that's where I kind of think that that very specific type of it's almost like campfire storytelling. Because, if you think about it, we all scroll through TikTok way more than we should, or Reels or YouTube Shorts, or what have you. And you get involved in these creators' lives and you follow them and you follow their ups and downs and their relationships. And fundamentally, that's soap. It's soap operas. And
Yeah.
people say, oh, well, we had to cancel River City because nobody watches soap anymore. I was like, yes, they do. They just do it through TikTok.
Yes.
Um, so that's the type of storytelling that I can see really becoming the forefront of this new digital medium. People talk a lot about, micro dramas and vertical dramas at the moment. I actually think it's going to go further than that, but that's just kind of where we are at the moment. But it's no coincidence that those are really like soapy, relationshipy type stories because that's what you want when you're like snuggled up with your phone and you're just, having a little moment for yourself. You don't necessarily want the like hard hitting social drama or the thriller or what have you. Those are great on bigger screens. And I think that's what's going to kind of happen more and more that in the same way and any screenwriter will kind of know sometimes you might pitch a project and you think it's a feature film, they go, actually, this is telly. This feels like telly, or vice versa. I think it's going to become increasingly that it'll be like, actually, that's digital. It's more of a soapy thing. It's going to feel digital. So that was a little bit answering about three questions at the same time, but
No, but that's really interesting, yeah, because I think also like, that is very accessible for the young people watching. If you
Mhm.
wanted to build any kind of skills or dip your toe in the water and give it a go, like you have a phone, I'm sure, and so you
Exactly.
kind of have a go at filming your own soap with your friends in a way.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely. Or even just do it yourself because it just, if you
yeah,
think about it, creators or influencers, they're just one person filming themselves talking about their life. And most people follow them because their life is quite interesting. And you follow them through, breakups and falling out with friends and getting a new job and all that kind of thing. And That's the same reason that I followed Neighbours 100 years ago, or,
And
EastEnders or whatever.
Brilliant, yeah. No, honestly, guys, people love a soap. We're from the soap generation, and yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, and so because there are lots of young people watching who will, be from Scotland who want to get into TV, that's why they're here. What do you see as the most common barriers for people, like mentally, when they're like, "Oh, I just don't think that I'll be able to get in. I'll never be the person to make it." And then, what would you say to those people as a reassurance that they can do it?
Absolutely. So I think one of the biggest mental blocks is one of the things with anything creative, whether you are a writer, an actor, a musician, or what have you, it is self-doubt because it is inherently subjective. There's no, if you go into, I don't know, a career in maths or something, you get it right or you get it wrong. You do things, and so there's a certain kind of like objectivity that you can go, oh, I got promoted here, so therefore I must be quite good at what I do, and so on. Of course, we always know it's a bit more complicated than that, but there are sort of certain like objective metrics. Of course, in a creative career, and particularly in film and TV, and particularly in the state that film and TV is right now, it is so difficult to know what if I like. I will never forget when I was probably in my early or mid 20s. It was still the height of like X Factor, and I remember coming back. I was not long out of film school, and I was watching it with my mum and dad. I was visiting them for the weekend, and we watched one of those, like the early auditionees who had been clearly told all their lives that they were like amazing, and their mum and dad told them they were great, and of course, so they walked in with all the confidence, opened their mouth, and oh my goodness, they were awful. And I remember sitting watching this and actually physically going cold because I thought, what if that's me as a writer? It could be. I don't know. There is no, I think I've got stories to tell. I like what I write. My friends say it's good. My friends at film school liked it. But until or unless anything's actually sold and made, and actually, quite honestly, even then, and I think so. Firstly, the piece of advice I would give is that everybody in the industry feels that way all the time. You just have to get used to it. There is no point. I have a very good friend. I won't name him, but he has Golden Globes. He has an Emmy, I think. He is a proper Hollywood name. And when he has a film bomb, he panics and he thinks he wasn't good enough. And what's he going to do with his life now? What's he going to be when he grows up, and so on. So everyone feels that way. Everyone feels that there's like this mythical in that you'll be like, oh, once I get an agent, once I get that commission, once I have that award or whatever it is, then I will feel objectively talented. You'll never feel that. So I think it's just firstly a question of just getting used to that, getting comfortable with it, knowing that if you love what you're writing or what you're acting or directing or what you're making, that it kind of has to be enough. And I know that's easier said than done. You probably won't hear me say it once and then go, oh, right, I'm sorted. But if you keep that in mind and just kind of know that anybody's feedback, it's just their opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are terrible or that you're great, because you will get some really positive feedback and your thing will still bomb. So I think that's maybe that feels a little bit bleak, but I think that's one of the big things to just get comfortable with the fact that it is subjective. But then also, on a more practical thing, is I would say do a 1 minute pilot and bring it in, because one of the things that's really important and I think is hugely missing from the industry right now, and there was even more of it when I first started out 20 odd years ago, is getting those responses and that feedback early on. It used to be when you submitted a script to a production company, you would always get at least a paragraph of feedback. So you would have an idea of why they weren't going to take it further. It might be a bit rubbish or whatever, but you get something. And I've been told that now they rarely, if ever, do that. So then you're lost for even longer. So a really important part of the Glasgow Tellyfest system is that even just at a 1 minute pilot, as it goes out to committee, they all make comments on every single one. This is why I selected this one. This is why I liked a lot about this one, but it didn't quite do enough for me. And I will create a report for you so you'll at least get that little bit of feedback, whether you get selected or not. And then you can kind of, if you don't get selected the first time around, you can obviously take that feedback and then submit the next time. So I think that, yeah, and then also, I mean, if not Glasgow Tellyfest, I mean, things like writers groups, and there's lots of kind of like networking things where you can then find peers and you can read things each other, and just again, yeah, just kind of get comfortable with. You'll never really know for certain that you're good because there's no such thing.
Yes,
Um,
I think that is such a fantastic point, and I think you're so right about the feedback. Like not having feedback is awful. Like you
Hmm.
need that constant kind of stream of
Totally.
people giving their opinions, but you also have to take everything with a pinch of salt because it is someone's opinion. Um,
Exactly.
and I think in general as well, it's very easy, especially I think if you're a creative person, to take it very personally. Like you have
Hmm.
to be able to accept feedback and not have it cut you to the core. Do you know what I mean? I think you have to kind of take it on the chin, and not let it dishearten you. And that's a muscle that you need to develop, really, you know?
Exactly. That is just experience. And the more experience you can get that. Because the other thing too is I think the more experience you get with feedback, the more you get used to recognizing oh, that's actually a really good point. I should have done that. Versus, nah, yeah, it's not wrong, but it would just be a different thing than what I'm writing. Because a lot of people give feedback and they mean well, but they're basically telling you how they would have written it, which is fine, but you're the one writing it. So yeah, so I think that it's really important to get as much feedback as possible. As you say, to exercise that muscle of not taking it personally and just getting used to it and knowing that it is what it is. And, for every person who doesn't like whatever you wrote, somebody else will. Like that's just the nature of it. But also to kind of get used to knowing what resonates with you, because that's really important because a lot of the times they will say things that you're like, of course, I should have made that clear. Of course, a lot of times feedback is really good and really important, and it's so easy to be like, why are you saying it's not perfect? And then you just kind of reject all of it. So and the other thing is too is if you obviously I encourage everyone to do a 1 minute pilot and get involved in Glasgow Tellyfest, but there's also nothing to stop anyone just starting a TikTok tomorrow and start pitching your ideas and start, be the character or whatever it is. And then you'll get, again, you will get such a range of feedback and a
Yeah.
lot of it will be rubbish. But even as an exercise to get used to that, it might not be a bad idea.
Absolutely. I mean, you actually do, because I spend quite a lot of time on TikTok.
I mean,
And
yeah.
you do get, or you get people who literally have a question about themselves, and then they
Mhm.
go on TikTok to ask a general opinion about that,
Yeah.
and they get positive and negative feedback. You could even do that and be like, guys, I've got this idea for this script,
Hmm.
or here's a little scene that I'm acting out. What's your feedback? Ask for the feedback,
Absolutely. Yep.
and then at least
People
you're in
love
control.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'll just get used to it and you will see how half of the comments will be absolutely bonkers and
Yeah.
they'll have nothing to do with what you're trying to create. And you're like, great, fine, no problem. But maybe one or two might actually be really helpful. And I think that when people are first starting out that they then panic about doing that kind of thing because what if somebody steals the idea or whatever it is? And I think the thing to bear in mind is that actually rarely happens. I'm not saying that it never happens. There are obviously some very famous cases, but a lot of people have the same ideas. There's only so many stories in the world. So the chances are, if someone ends up making a film that's similar to what you pitched on TikTok, it's more than likely to be a coincidence. And more importantly, whatever your idea is, you are the only one who can write your idea. And I
Yeah.
think having that confidence that even if somebody takes my basic concept, they're not going to write it how I was going to. And I think that just I don't know. I guess it's coming at everything with the attitude of sort of openness and abundance rather than I have to protect everything and I have to sort of keep it. That's a really natural thing. We all want to sort of protect our things to start with, but I promise you, it's one of the most important things you can do for yourself is just get used to. Here's 57 ideas. Any of them any good? No. Okay, fine. Here's other 57, and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. In the entrepreneur world, because obviously
Mhm.
my business partner and I started Eric, we see a lot of people being like, I've got an idea for a business, but I don't want to say what it is. And we're like, you don't understand the effort it takes to start a business. No one's going to steal it.
Exactly, exactly. It's
So,
also it's kind of the opposite as well of when people say to you, and this will happen to you constantly if you tell anyone you're a writer, they will say, "Well, I've got an idea, and how about you write it, and we'll split the money." And I'm like, "No. A, I
exactly.
have plenty ideas. Thank you so much. And B, that is like 98% of the work versus the 2% of coming up with the idea.
Yeah,
Anyone can come up with 37 ideas an hour. It's
absolutely. Fully agree with that. Okay, well we've got a couple of minutes. So if anyone has any questions that they want to ask Claire now, please do put it in the comments. But I am actually going to ask one final piece of advice, please, for
Mhm.
anyone dreaming of a career in TV or film, but not sure where to start. I know we've covered a couple of different touch points, but any big piece of advice you want to give?
Um, I think probably the biggest piece, oh, two pieces of advice actually. One would be just to do it. Just to get out there and do it. You do not need a film school degree. You do not need a university degree. You literally do not need anything. I'm a huge old Hollywood fan. I could go on about that all day long. But one of the things I love about it is these people just like rocked up, begged, borrowed, or stole a camera and figured it out. If you've got a story in you, that is all you need to do. And whether you pick up a phone and film yourself a TikTok or you start writing an outline for a script, just do it. Try and do it every day. It gets easier, I promise. I still have days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I can't write anything. I've got no ideas. But they're few and far between just because I force myself to do it every day. And then the other thing is do what I call project cheek. So when I started the festival, I actually hadn't worked in the Scottish industry before. I had moved home here after years abroad, and I'd actually been working full time as an author for those first few years. So I knew no actors, writers, directors, producers, nobody. I literally went through my Instagram and I slid into DMs of some of the most famous actors in Scotland, and about 90% of them went, "Yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. I'll get involved." Yep.
Stop it. That's a hustle. I love that, Claire.
It's a
That is,
hustle. It was great. And I was just like, Project Cheek. They can only say no. They can only ignore me. And some of them did, and that's absolutely fine. But I would say people are really, really generous. Everyone remembers what it was like to be starting out. They might not always have time to give you loads of advice or to help you out, whatever, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Ask, be polite, but just slide into DMs, email agents, email producers, and just ask for advice. Ask them if they'll have a look at your stuff and give you feedback. Some might just say it's a numbers game. It's think of it like Tinder. The more you swipe, the more chances you might just get someone that you actually want to, is a decent human being. Who knows?
oh no, I love that. I think that's a fantastic bit of advice to end on. Tried and tested by Claire herself. So
Hmm. Yep.
there we go. Thank you so much. Everyone go and check out Glasgow Tellyfest, please. And yeah, don't be scared of just having a go, trying, what you want to do and just, be open to feedback, but also taking everything with a pinch of salt. I think those are the big takeaways.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
That has been fantastic. You absolutely nailed that. So that was didn't need to be worried about following on from Janice. She was fantastic. You were fantastic. Thank you, Claire.